Hey everybody, welcome back to our channel. We're the Movie Couple. I'm Wendy.
I'm Dustin.
And here's our non-spoiler review for Little Women. Little Women is directed by Greta Gerwig and stars Saoirse Ronan, Timothée Chalamet, Emma Watson, Eliza Scanlen, Laura Dern, Meryl Streep, and Florence Pugh. An adaptation of the novel by Louisa May Alcott. Little Women follows the life of four sisters as they come of age in America and in the aftermath of the Civil War. I think Little Women, it's definitely one of the books I read throughout my life. I was introduced to it when I was really young. I believe I read it again when I was in school. I think most everybody, if they haven't read the book, they have at least heard of it or kind of are familiar with the story. This obviously is not the first film adaptation of the novel. It's been done many, many times, but it is directed by Greta Gerwig, who worked on Lady Bird, also starred Saoirse Ronan and Timothée Chalamet. So they are reunited in this movie, and it's so good. What was your kind of first initial reaction when you heard about, Greta Gerwig directing Little Women?
Well, honestly, I didn't really know much about it because I've actually never read the book, and I never saw the movie.
Any of them?
Any of them. So this is actually my first full beginning to end exposure with Little Women. So I didn't even know the story, and even like when we were about ready to go in, and Wendy's like, "Oh yeah, remember this and this happens." So I was like, "I haven't seen it, so I guess I now know that happens."
I definitely spoiled some plot twists, not twists, but
big events,
certain key moments for him, and he's like, "I didn't know," and I was like, "Oh my god, I just had diarrhea of the mouth," and I stupidly assumed that everybody have read the book, know the story through and through, and it's kind of like not everybody has. So that was my bad, and I am sorry. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about this movie. So I was worried that this was just going to be kind of the same type of, screen adaptation that we've seen before, because how many different ways can you tell this popular novel?
Yeah, especially because it's very specifically in this time period, and you can't really change much to it in the way of story and plotline.
And you want to be faithful to this book, and this is like one of those books. It's kind of like you can't show, like, a lot of people know this story, like the back of their palm. So you really want to stay, I think, true to the story, and I think they did a really good job with it. Even though it's a story we've seen and read many, many times, it felt fresh. Greta Gerwig brought this like freshness to it, and I think with this cast, this cast is really amazing to kind of watch them together. When you watch the four sisters together, when you watch Joe and Laurie is played by Timothée Chalamet, and you kind of see their chemistry, already knowing that they had great chemistry in Lady Bird, kind of seeing that play out in these two characters is so satisfying. I think Saoirse Ronan is such a standout. When I heard that she was going to be Jo first, I was like, well, of course she's going to be Jo. Like, I didn't want her to play any other character but Jo. But it's so refreshing, and something they did a little bit different in this iteration than the previous iterations, that they gave us a little bit of a time jump.
Actually, it was quite a time jump. They were jumping the timeline back and forth. And since this was my first viewing of it, I was kind of like, is this what the original novel and the original movie is like? Because it did give it a very modern twist.
Yes.
And the problem is, though, it did also make it a little bit more difficult to follow.
Especially for you, right, who have never, you don't really know much about the story. Did you feel confused at any point?
Not confused. Well, yeah, honestly, yes. It did confuse me a little bit, but I kind of got the hang of it. But I think one of the big things that this jumping of the timeline did is that for people who haven't seen it, you don't build up the love and the connection with these characters that you get from seeing them from the beginning and seeing them grow and seeing where they go, as opposed to this, different time frame. You don't get the growth of the character. You just get these important stories, and you kind of not lose it, but you miss out, I think, on that deep connection.
I can see that because for me, kind of very different from you going in knowing all these characters, knowing exactly what is going to happen.
Yeah.
So to kind of see this live out and really noticing the time jump, I was kind of like, oh, they're telling it this way. It's a really interesting take on this very old story, and it does add that level of freshness. I was worried that it could get a little messy for the people who don't know the story as well, but you said that it's not hard to follow, but it does take you out of that, like, that you I guess you don't feel the connections to the character like you said, and I think that's a valid point.
But something I do think it does very well is if you have seen it, they can now highlight and emphasize the parts that they want. You know, it's like people who've seen it before, they all know. I'm not going to say it.
I
almost said
that.
Close. But some of the main events that happen to the four sisters, I would have to say the main event that happens.
Yes.
You know, everyone who's seen it knows that story, knows that point, so they're always going to have that emotion. However, if you're flipping it around, they don't know when it's going to happen, as opposed to seeing it coming a mile away.
And with that said, even that I ruined that moment for Dustin. I knew that it was coming, and we still both really felt the emotions just as hard, and I really love that, and I think that says to the storytelling, the cast performance, everything, and it was shot beautifully. I mean, I love a good period piece, like, you know, in the skirts and everything, the hairstyle. It's really, really fantastic. I think each of the four sisters are so different, but they all share this just big love for each other. It's so passionate as a family, and I think that's what I really like seeing on screen. And also, shout out to Laura Dern and Meryl Streep. Laura Dern plays Marmee, and Meryl Streep plays Aunt March. So
those two did an amazing job.
Yeah, they're not the main characters. I would say the main characters would be the sisters, but you know, they are still like staples in the story, and I couldn't see anyone else playing those roles.
All of these actors did an amazing job with their roles, and I really liked how each of them brought their own flavor to it.
Yes, and
it was just really fun to watch.
So with that said, let's go ahead and give our rating. What's your rating for this movie?
Now, I enjoyed the movie, and I thought it was really well done. I'm going to give it a rented, because I still think you should watch it. I mean, it is something that I'm kind of like, this is one of those stories I really should have known a long time ago. And it has a really interesting new way of telling the story. So I'm going to say rent it.
And for my rating, I am kind of in the same vein as you, not quite as low. So I love the story of Little Women. I was a little worried about how they were going to make this still, like, you know, fresh and modern and now without, like, taking away from the charminess of the story, and I think they execute it fantastically. I do want people to go to the theaters to see this. I am going to rent this see it at a matinee. I want people to go into the theater and I like really see it play out on the big screen. A lot of the shots are absolutely gorgeous, and you get Timothée Chalamet, like, you know, like big, just big. So it's fantastic. And you guys, that is our rating for Little Women. Thank you so much for watching this non-spoiler review. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this channel for more, and we will see you next time.